What's up, y'all, and welcome to another video, Bad News Brown. Once again, before I get started, go ahead, hit that like, and please subscribe. Now, this video, I want to speak a little bit about the relationship between the blacks and Mexicans in the Bay Area, and in particular, Oakland, California. And this is because, somebody asked me to do this due to the fact that you hear a lot online regarding, especially in the LA area, regarding the wars or whatnot, the racial violence between the Hispanics and the blacks in the LA area. So people is wondering, is it like that in all of California? How is the dynamic? So I want to touch a little bit about that, just to kind of give y'all a little better understanding regarding that whole dynamic, coming from a Northern California, Oakland perspective, I guess. So let me get started. Well, see, the first thing you need to understand is that there's not a whole bunch of Serranos in Oakland. There are some, but there's not many. You see, like me personally, other than in prison, I never seen a Serrano in Oakland, meaning like I never seen nobody walking around with a bald head, with their shades, looking like a Serrano, a Southsider. Now, like I said, it's not to say that there are, like in the Richmond area, you got some. But as far as just them openly walking around Oakland, I've never seen that, me personally. And then another thing is, depending on what side of town you grew up in, is really going to probably determine your interaction with the Hispanic community, period. An example would be, depending on what school you went to, like for instance, if you grew up in the north or in the west, coming up in elementary school, it wasn't too many Mexicans. You had maybe a few like Vietnamese and Cambodian, but the rest was just black in West in North Oakland. So most of the Hispanics, as far as in the city of Oakland, live in the east. So, and as well, depending on which school you went to in the east, gonna determine your interactions with the Hispanic community. And again, like I said, with that being said, so if you haven't even went to jail or prison, you don't even really know the difference between a North Daniel or a Serrano or a border brother, unless, nowadays, maybe with the internet and people talking, but again, depending on where you grew up at. Again, like I said, it's some people, like even me, when I first heard of the gang XIV back in the day, I just figured it was just a Mexican gang. I didn't know it had nothing to do with Northern California Mexicans or anything like that. It was just a Mexican gang. And then I remember even elementary school, because I went to a few elementary schools, it was they said somebody mentioned the North Daniel and Serrano. But see, we young, I didn't even know it was Serrano. I thought it was Sir Daniel, North Daniel against Sir Daniel. And even then, I just thought it was two Mexican gangs out this way that didn't like each other. It wasn't until I actually went to jail, to be honest, I figured out the whole politics and stuff behind they gangs or whatnot. So, again, for the average black person growing up in Oakland, you not even aware of that. So, to you, a Mexican is a Mexican, and that's not in a bad way. Just saying, like you wouldn't even know the difference from a Serrano or North Daniel or a border brother, no matter how they dressed, as far as when it comes to the appearance, the shave hair or hairstyle or whatnot. Even when you see the tattoos, you may look at it like, okay, there's some Mexican gangs or whatever, but you're not really knowing the whole background politics, unless somebody who went to jail that's in the know told you this. So for us growing up, there's not, and again, like I said, most of the, if not all the Hispanics live in East Oakland, and the East is big. The East is the biggest side of town in Oakland. Actually, the East is bigger than North Oakland and West Oakland put together. So you got certain areas in the East where the Hispanic community live at. And again, like I said earlier, depending on what school you went to, like for instance, since I went to hella schools throughout Oakland, throughout hella elementary schools, like even Cleveland, now that's a predominantly Asian Chinese school. So again, same applies with the Asian community. Depending on where you went to school, what side of town, really going to depend on how much interaction you even had with them. So, like for instance, now Cleveland is an Asian school. Now that's in Funktown. Now for the brothers that went to elementary school in Funktown, most of them went to Bella Vista, and a lot of the Asians went to Cleveland or Franklin. Now with the Hispanic community, a lot of them, see, I went to Melrose. That was a predominantly Hispanic school. Even though it was brothers there, though. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to all my 500 guys. There was a lot of brothers there. But then, what's the other school? It's feel like maybe Fruitvale. Like all in that area, you're going to see some mess. So you're going to grow up with them. But even then, even when I went to certain schools, even with Melrose, but we was young, though, I don't too much recall hearing North Daniel, Serrano, or none of that. I didn't even know what that was. You know, of course, I knew all the Turks, the black Turks. Now, maybe if I was Mexican, I probably wouldn't know that. But then again, like I said, it's not as prevalent in Oakland. And again, Oakland is not as big as LA. So I can imagine in LA, you're going to have whole communities that's just Hispanic. Versus where out here in Oakland, it's a mix. Even when you got Hispanic areas in Oakland, it's pretty much surrounded by blacks. Like we everywhere. So all that kind of, in a way, I ain't gonna say it really plays a part, but then again, it does, because like I said, you got a lot of people that grew up in Oakland that don't have too much Hispanic interaction like that, as far as on that level. You know, I mean, of course, they see Hispanic people, but in their mind, this is a Hispanic person. So, but as far as the whole gang street culture, there's no, and this is not to say brothers and certain Hispanics don't go back and forth on little personal skirmishes, of course. And of course, I ain't aware of everything that go on in the damn city, you know, but I'm pretty tapped in to know enough. But as far as like this Mexican hood or block funking against this black hood or block, and like I said, it's not to say it ain't been no back and forth. I'm not saying that at all. But even then, though, a lot of times it's not based on no hood stuff. Now, it might be based on some business, some street business, you know, but it's not based on no hood stuff, because the whole dynamic is different out here. Again, probably the most important notable fact is that there's not many Serranos out here in the Bay Area, in Oakland. There are some, but not nearly enough, versus where you in LA is nothing but Serranos. So a lot of the prison politics and stuff gonna reverberate in that area faster, in my opinion. You know, and plus, like I said, most of the Serranos are all down there, so it's a whole different dynamic. But then again, even down there, because we hear certain instances, racially motivated instances, back and forth between them. But a lot of times I done seen and heard certain stuff where some brothers is like, nah, in our neighborhood, we actually cool with the Hispanics in our hood. And we actually funkin' with them, and they funkin' with that other Hispanic hood. And it's not really until they get into the jails where that type of politic probably lay precedent, and I could be mistaken about that. But that's kind of like to let y'all know. So if you from somewhere else outside of California, even if you in SoCal, even if somebody from out here never really gave it much thought, And again, every experience is different. And maybe somebody looking at this that grew up in Oakland is kind of like, nah, man, I got hella Mexican homies and this and this and that. And I would say to them is, for one, how old are you? And even if you my age or older, where did you live? Where did you live? Was it in the East? I'm sure it was in the East. Now, this is not to say somebody from the North or the West didn't have Mexican partners, because of course, like I mentioned, the Mexicans, and it's another thing as far as the Hispanics, because you got Chicanos, meaning Hispanics that's born out here, that's from out here, and they not gangbangers, so because I remember growing up with guys and people, they were Chicanos, they wasn't like Paisas, they grew up out here, there's Mexicans, but they wasn't gang banging, like, they wasn't, Now, these are not to say, of course, when them boys, if they ever went to jail or not, that's probably for them, that's when they gonna have to probably make that type of decision or whatnot. I'm not sure. But, so, it's just different up this way. But I hope I kind of answered that question. And, again, this is not no divisive video. This is really just trying to get y'all to understand the whole California and the difference of California and how we look. And I ain't gonna say how we look at Mexicans up here, because that ain't really what I'm trying to say, but it's just kind of like the dynamic to us. Like I said, the question was asked to me was, well, we hear this going on with LA, the gang wars, black on Mexicans. What's up with y'all up this way? Well, what's up with up this way is, like I said, we don't have that issue, and this is not to say I ain't even gonna say, we identify, of course, with the brothers. We ain't with no hate, no racism. Now, of course, you may have hoods that go back, and that hood just happen to be black, and that hood just happen to be Mexican, and they can be shooting at each other on some business. It ain't got nothing to do with race, and that's a whole different thing. None of that my business. But when it comes with the whole hatred and the N-word, then that's kind of, or a group feeling like you got to do something to an innocent black person to get your initiation. And this is stuff I'm hearing. I don't know if this is true or not. Then it's like, okay, hold on. But again, out this way, in particular Oakland, it's a whole different dynamic as far as with us and the Hispanic community up this way. And again, that's probably due to it's not being hardly any Southsiders up this way, and Oakland being a predominantly black city, even if the population percentage-wise don't suggest so. It is, and because like I said, you can grow up on whole sides of town in Oakland, and you will see very few Hispanics. Although now it's changing a little bit, but even for the most part, like I said, you go to your elementary school. Your school is not going to be too many of them, unless you grew up in the East, and even in certain parts and certain schools in the East, and that applies with the Asian community as well. But yeah, man, BadNewsBrown, breaking it down, man, a little bit more for y'all. Go ahead again, man. Subscribe, hit that like or dislike. Peace.